Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about daily routine. In this video lesson, I am going to share my everyday activities. I am going to share actions that I do every day. So I have prepared something for you here, and the topic is very simple. I want you to practice with me. So there are a few action words that I have written here. Use, get dressed, meet, take, have and go. We are going to use that and we are going to apply that in our sentences, and I'm going to speak. So let's begin. I'm talking about myself, so I'm saying I. Well, I use Facebook. I meet my students every day. I have breakfast early in the morning. I go to my institute, and what else? I get dressed after my breakfast. I have online classes. I go to the cinema once in a week. I use Instagram. I use Zoom for my online classes. I meet with my co-workers, I meet with my students. Easy. In the same way, I can also use we. Like we use Facebook. When I talk about myself, I say I use Facebook. But when I talk about we, listener and the speaker both are included. So we together, we use Facebook. If I talk about my listener, you, so I can say you use Facebook. When I talk about a third person plural, like there are people more than one and I'm talking about them, so I can say they use Facebook. Simple, right? Now, let's make it a little bit more advanced. I can apply always, usually, sometimes. So now listen again. Always means that you are constantly doing that action without any break. Usually means there's a small break, but it happens most of the time. For example, you do that 5 days a week, so that could be usually, because there's a small break in there. Sometimes means the break is long, like you go to cinema once in a month, so you can say I sometimes go to cinema. So sometimes means very less. Usually means 70% of your time. Always means 100%. Now, so I'm going to share my daily routine, and remember, the reason I have written this because I want you to understand. Whenever we talk about repeating actions, whenever we talk about actions that we do again and again, whenever we talk about actions that we repeat again and again in our practical life, then we use base form, first form of the verb. We cannot say went, we cannot say gone, we have to say go. Here it is, go. So whenever you talk about actions that you do every day, use base form of the verb. Now I'm going to talk about my everyday activities. I'm going to talk about actions that I do every day, that I do again and again. And I'm going to use always, usually, sometimes. I'm going to use go, have, meet. I'm going to use base form of the verb. Now practice with me. So I usually wake up around 8 o'clock, except Sundays. On Sundays I always wake up late. After waking up, I usually have my breakfast, I usually have a cup of tea, and then I take shower. After that, I always wear official dress. I always wear shirt and pants. I always wear a tie for my institute, and I leave my home around 10 o'clock. I always reach to my office. I always go to my office around 11 o'clock. I come back to my home somewhere between 4 o'clock, and I always talk with my family members before I start my online classes. I start my online class around 6:30, and I always take online classes on Zoom. I always speak English in my online classroom. Sometimes I speak Urdu for the students who speak the common language. I make videos for my YouTube channels, and I always make videos on Mondays. I sometimes go to restaurants, especially on weekends. I take my family to a restaurant, and I sometimes eat junk food, but I usually like to eat homemade food. Now, moving on. Now I'm going to teach you actions that I do not do. I'm going to make a negative sentence. When we talk about a negative sentence by using I, we, you, they, we always use do not. Do not means that you're talking about daily routine. It means that you're talking about everyday actions. For example, I want to say that I do not use Facebook. I do not use Facebook. It means in my everyday routine, Facebook is not a part of it. I do not speak French language. It means speaking French language is not a part of my routine, right? So when you talk about some things that is not your routine, you can say I do not. Now, I'm going to tell you actions that I do not do. For example, I do not use Snapchat. I do not use Instagram. I do not use TikTok. What else? I do not read novels. I do not read Urdu novels. I do not learn Chinese language every day. I want to, but I do not. I don't know why. Let's move on to the next topic of this video. Whenever you talk about a third person, whenever you talk about repeating action of a third person, it could be he or she, like John or Elena. Whenever you talk about a third person, you have to use S or ES. You cannot say he go. You have to say he go. You have to say he meets. So for example, let's talk about John. So John meets with his students every day. John speaks English language. John sometimes uses Facebook. John always reads novels and newspapers. John goes to office every day. John always goes to office in the morning. So whenever you talk about a third person, you cannot use John go or he go, he speak, he read. You have to say he reads or he speaks, he makes, right? So practice with that, because most of the time even beginners or students who are at level 2, they make this kind of mistake because of lack of practice. Now the last thing is when you talk about actions that John does not do. Whenever you make a negative action, whenever you make a negative sentence, then you must use does not. For example, John goes to office. If I want to make a negative sentence, then I should say John does not go to office. John uses Facebook. I can say John does not use Facebook. John speaks English. I can say John does not speak English. When you make a negative sentence about he or she, then you must use does not. And with does not, you cannot repeat S or ES again. With does not, you have to just use simple or base form. For example, John goes to office, John does not go to office. John uses laptop, John does not use laptop. John speaks French language, John does not speak French language. So when you talk about third person, do not forget to remember this lesson. Now I want you to practice. I want you to do practice as much as you can and try not to repeat this same mistake again.